Welcome to the Teapot Reads. My name's Sam. I'm the Teapot. This is what I am currently reading, and I am so happy to see you today. Today is another seasonal recommends video, and this time it is for autumn. My favorite aesthetics live in the season of autumn. My favorite season is technically winter, but I love so much about this time of the year. Everything about it is just wonderful and beautiful, and it is just such a reinvigorating time. Summer and I don't get along super well, so every time September rolls around and I'm like, it's here, it's autumn. I don't care what the calendar says, it's autumn. It's just like a great return to form for me. I know a lot of people also have really warm feelings about autumn. It is, I think, probably the most popular season, at least for readers. I feel like I see people are always like, yeah, I love fall, I love autumn, it's my favorite. I get it. I do. I love it. It's just a cozy time. I wanted to go through and recommend some books and subgenres that I think are really autumnal, and maybe give you some ideas for reading if you're kind of skewed, or if you just want to know my opinion on books that I associate with this season. I think I've read a lot of these. Sometimes I do always tend to throw in books I haven't read to these videos because they just give off the vibes, but I think I've actually read quite a fair bit of them. There's something very nostalgic about this time of year. I always want to watch children's movies and shows that I loved. I always want to reread books that got me through middle school and high school. And when I was pulling books from my shelves that I was like, oh yeah, this reminds me of autumn, it tended to be books that I was reading during the school years that really stuck with me. I did narrow it down quite a bit because I have two really large stacks here next to me, and I could not just do book upon book upon book. I was not going to overwhelm y'all with that. So these are just kind of the condensed versions. There were quite a few honorable mentions that almost made it on here that didn't. And before we get into the general books that I think are very autumnal, I wanted to get through the subgenres that I think just give me all the vibes I'm looking for this time of the year. Let us get into it. Number one, we've got the witchy rom-com. I love that this is sort of a genre now. I am so happy to see how many of these books have been coming out lately because I love it. It's practical magic, Kiki's Delivery Service vibes. I'm here for it. Sign me up. I have, these aren't all actually specifically witchy. I have one on here that's not, but they all definitely have those witch romance vibes to them, and anyway, I'm all for it. I haven't read Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck, but this is really high on my list, which is kind of why I put in the front. This is probably, if I get to one this season, this will be the one that I get to. This or Cackle, which I don't think is strictly a rom-com. I think it's just a lighter fantasy. This is cute. This just came out. I think it's starting to take off on TikTok, which is great because this cover is adorable, and like I said, I'm all for this subgenre. This also has small town cozy vibes to it. It kind of was honestly giving me a little bit Practical Magic meets Stars Hollow vibes, just from descriptions. So other notable mentions are Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. This is the first in a series. These are all first in series, I think, or all but one. The Ex-Hex by Emma Sterling. I think this one is actually queer. I should have mentioned that. This is a queer one, so if you're looking for a queer alternative, the rest of these are all, I think, straight. At least they're not advertised as queer, but Payback's a Witch is, and I think the whole series is. Don't hold me to that. But the Ex-Hex, which I love this cover too. I think it's really cute with them in the moon. And Witch Please by Anna Guire. This is the first in the trilogy. I actually have the first two. I have not read, but I think these are really cute covers. They're not my favorite for the genre, but they're just cute covers in general. And then one that's not strictly a witchy book is by Sally Thorne, who's the author of The Hating Game, which I've not read anything by Sally Thorne, but I got an arc of this. It comes out this month, actually. It just says September 2022, so not 100% certain the date. But this is Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match, and it's giving off all the same vibes as the witchy rom-com, except with a more campy horror film element to it. So yeah, really, really excited for this one. I think it'll be this one or Small Town Big Magic that I get to this year. Then of course there's dark academia. This is the genre. It's been the genre of the moment for a while, especially on TikTok, which I love because I've been a big dark academia fan for a long time now. It is an aesthetic that I wish I could embody a lot more, but I am really bad at committing to like in-depth aesthetics, and I get exhausted by reading scholarly texts. So it's not really for me, but I do adore it. Or not for me in real life, but I adore it in fiction. And I had to forcibly stop myself from pulling every single dark academia book I have on my shelves because there are a lot. So first of all, probably the book of the moment is Babel by R.F. Kuang. You can definitely check out my reviews and vlog for this. I did a lot for it. I loved it. It's one of my top 10 books of the year so far. It is so very good. I am so happy I read an ARC because watching everyone's reactions to it has just been magnificent and wonderful, and I'm here for it. It's just been a joy. If you don't know what Babel is about, go look it up because literally everyone is talking about this book. Actually, don't look it up. Just go buy it. It's so good. Babel. I also pulled, this is a favorite of mine, just not even just dark academia, but across the board, like a favorite fantasy, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I know when it came out, it had a little bit of a controversy because of one passage, which I do believe has been edited in current editions of the book, which good, as it should be. I really adore this. This is about a magic school that is trying to kill the students like actively, and that is part of just the learning process. It is a really hard book to describe past that because the things that are really wonderful about it are not just the world building, but the characters and really watching the character grow. And I'm a big sucker for people who have to like learn to be able to have friends, like that, like accept the fact that they can have friends. And that's very much what the arc of this story is going through. It's really just a solid story. And the cliffhanger, I have not read book 2 yet because I needed it to be closer to book 3's release to be able to function, because the cliffhanger here was nasty, and I've heard the cliffhanger at the end of book 2 is equally nasty. And then the third dark academia and the final dark academia book I pulled was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Yeah, all three of these books that I pulled were pretty popular, but I actually was not a huge fan of Ninth House. I will say trigger warnings for sexual assault because there is a lot of it. And I think that's one of the major reasons I wasn't a big fan. It just felt gratuitous and unnecessary and very out of place in the rest of the story that was happening. To one degree, I get it, but to another degree, it felt unnecessary, and there wasn't any opportunity taken to do anything with it. It was just like a horrible thing happened multiple times across the book, and it just happened. Like, it felt just very unnecessary, I guess. This is all about secret societies, which are one of my favorite parts of dark academia books, and I do think that the secret society aspect is done really, really well in this book. I am, against maybe my better judgment, excited for Hellbent, which is the sequel. It's coming out, I think, in January. The cover, can I just say, snakes are out, rabbits are in, and I'm here for it. Mysteries are also really big in this season, which I think everyone just kind of knows. I pulled 3 different kinds. So I pulled like a more, I don't want to say conventional, but I guess it's the most conventional out of all of these. This is Moriarty by Anthony Horowitz. I haven't read this yet. I haven't read anything by Anthony Horowitz yet, but I have only heard good things and I'm really excited. I have only heard good things from people I trust about Anthony Horowitz across the board, and I am really excited to read Moriarty. I am not sure if it's a sequel. I know that he wrote another book in the like Sherlock Holmes universe, but I thought this was a standalone, and then someone told me it was a sequel and I had to read the first one. I don't know. Let me know if you know down in the comments. This is the one I'm most interested in because I am a big, actually, Sherlock Holmes fan, and I don't talk about that a lot, but I really do love Sherlock Holmes, and I believe this basically takes place after the Reichenbach fall, and there is this huge sort of gap opened up in the London underground that minor petty criminals have to deal with, and people who aren't Sherlock Holmes also have to deal with. And that just sounds really good and really interesting to me. So yeah, Moriarty I pulled. Sherlock Holmes also. I feel like Sherlock Holmes could be like a wintry read or an autumnal read, but I'd probably be more likely to read it in autumn. As for cozy mysteries, this is the season for cozy mysteries. I pulled Shady Hollow by Juno Black. This is the first in a trilogy of cozy mysteries set with like anthropomorphic woodland creatures as the protagonists, which I always am a fan. I think there's something about talking animals that's very like summer and autumn, and yeah, I just had to. I have not read this one either. This is two people writing under the same name. I do have the whole trilogy though, so I better like it, right? And then I also pulled The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This one is huge. It's really, really popular on TikTok. I'm not saying anything special by recommending it here, but it actually gives me, I haven't read it, but it gives me the little bit of the like dark academia vibes as well as the mystery elements. This is also giving me very Knives Out vibes, and that is a very autumnal film. If you saw my Dice Picks My TBR video, you also know that this is on my TBR for the year, so I am planning to get to it this season and see if I'm accurate about it being autumnal. Now, I pulled two books that are sort of supernatural, paranormal, but just have general autumnal elements and have a little bit of nostalgia. It's this weird recipe, but they make for really perfect books that whenever I like think of them or look at them, all I can think about is literally this season. Number one being Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. If you haven't read this book, oh my god, go freaking read this book. Even if it's not your typical genre, it's really, really good, and it's such a quick read. This is about a family of Bruhiks, I think they use as the gender neutral term. And Yadriel is a transgender boy. His family is still having a hard time kind of coming to terms with his identity and with his gender, and they're very much like, no, you cannot be like the rest of us because like you can't do the magic because like gender politics, basically. I want to say that as delicately as I can. There's a lot of tension there, and it's not in a harsh way, which is nice. Like it's very much, it felt like there was still love there even when they refused to see him as who he is, but it's sort of the lacking love that he doesn't deserve. Anyway, Yadriel, in an attempt to prove himself and his magic, accidentally summons a ghost Julian, who is sort of like the bad boy of the school and died unexpectedly, and there is a murder involved. He's trying to help Julian figure out what happened and what led to this scenario, and it's cute, it's good, it's really solid. And then I also pulled The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is one of my absolute favorite series. It is about a group of teenagers trying to basically find a long dead Welsh king. It sounds so stupid when I try to say it aloud, but this series is fantastic. There are ghosts, there are psychics, there are dead Welsh kings, there's a little bit of dark academia, there's that going to school element that I think is really prominent in good autumnal literature, and just does everything right. The writing is fantastic. I love The Raven Boys. We're not going to talk about it more because I could wax on and 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 on. And maybe I should make a video about it. Let me know if you'd be interested in a super long video about the Raven Boys series, because that would give me a really nice excuse to reread them, and I am totally here for that. All right, and then the next like subgenre is the like going to school subgenre. I feel like when characters kind of start a new year, it's very much a trigger for me to be like, yes, autumn. Here it is, because I mean school tends to start in autumn, and there's just something about that vibe. A book that I did not include physically because it is buried right now is Vampire Academy by Rochelle Maid. This one not only has that back to school trope, but it has vampires, which are very autumnal, and it just has romance, and it is fantastic. I love the series. I've talked about it a lot. It's also on that my Dice Pick My TBR video, which I'm super excited about, and the TV show starts soon, which is so exciting. But physically, I did pull Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is one of my favorite books in the last couple years. Absolutely adored it. This is one of the best books, and people were like talking about it a lot for like a hot second, but I feel like it has not gotten the press it deserves because it is stunning, it is amazing, it is above the rest. Legendborn, I am diehard for. It is so very good. It has the like supernatural elements. It's got a little bit of the dark academia. It's very like tangential to dark academia, kind of like Raven Boys. Like it's got like that school element, but I wouldn't say it's dark academia. I've seen it on some dark academia lists, but I disagree. Bree's mother passed tragically in an accident that Bree does not think is an accident, and when she ends up enrolling at a pre-college program, because she's a genius. I was very uncertain about how the program worked, though. I'm going to be real. That was one of the hardest things for me to figure out. Anyway, she enrolls there as the same school that her mother went to, and she starts uncovering secret societies and secrets that might have actually led to her mother's death. And Brie also all of a sudden can see demons and like, what the hell is going on? And oh my god, so good. Book 2, Bloodmarked, comes out soon. Not soon enough, but soon. And this is just like a perfect autumnal read. All right, now on to the books that don't necessarily fit into one of those subcategories, but that I still really love for autumn. First off, we have The Monstrumologist by Rick Yancey. Rick Yancey is definitely a lot better known for his series The Fifth Wave, which I hated, but I really liked these. These are horror to the max, and I am not a big horror fan, but these absolutely had me in a chokehold when I was reading them in high school. They follow a monstrumologist and his apprentice who, I mean, they're like a zoology for monsters. And they're morbid and gross, and the mystery is good, and the aesthetic is great, and it is very like the night before Halloween type of horror, you know? There are 4 books in this series. These are the like adult mass market reissues, but they are actually YA books that I would say, you know, adults definitely could enjoy, but definitely younger middle grade readers also could enjoy. I feel like they really run the gamut there. Recommend The Monstrumologist. I actually kind of want to reread it this year. A book I haven't read but is also like horror, and like I said, bunnies are in, is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This one had like a moment like a month ago when it came out, and at least at my Barnes & Noble we could not keep it in stock. This is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, which is a classic Edgar Allan Poe story, and it just sounds amazing and it looks morbid, and I've heard it's really steeped with gothic elements, and like I said, bunnies are in, and I am all for this cover aesthetic. One of my absolute favorites this year and forever is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Book 3 is coming out this month. Holy crap. And I had to recommend it because it is the perfect autumn read. It's got the gothic horror elements, and it actually reminds me of video games quite a bit, where you just don't know what's coming next and you feel like you have to unlock challenges a little bit. Really does a great job of that aesthetic. It's definitely gothic. It's more sci-fi than gothic, or more sci-fi fantasy than gothic, but the mystery is really solid. It's very gruesome and morbid and macabre in some elements because they are literally necromancers, and the way that that magic is done is just fantastic and spooky, and I loved it. Like, I was scared certain times when I was reading this, in a good way. Like I said, I'm not a big horror fan, so I can stomach this, and if you're not a big horror fan, I think you could stomach it as well. I'm literally obsessed. Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, great autumnal reads. I haven't read this book either yet, but I've heard it's very gothic and spooky. I really hope I like it. It's The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. This is, I think, they eat books, and then her son eats souls, so she takes him and runs away to try to protect him. And I think there's like cultish elements. I also saw this favorably compared to Neil Gaiman, who I think has like autumnal stories, but isn't really an autumnal writer. But this one just sounds, I think because of all the really gothic elements, it sounds like something that I might really like this season. This was a favorite from like the high school reading era, so it does definitely have that nostalgic kick for me. I am so terrified to go back and reread it because I recently reread The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, which was another favorite, and I hated it. But this book I really want to maintain my love for, so I'm debating whether I should reread it. And that is Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. This is the first book in a duet, but I didn't actually read book 2. This is by April Genevieve Tucholke, and I believe this was her debut novel. It is fantastic. It is very gothic, very spooky. I'm gonna just read you the description because I think the description does a really good job of just grabbing your attention, and it's definitely making me want to reread it. So, oh, I don't know. I'm so torn. Nothing much exciting rolls through Violet White's sleepy seaside town until River West comes along. River rents the great house behind Violet's crumbling estate, and as eerie, grim things start to happen, Violet begins to wonder about the boy living in her backyard. Is River just a crooked, smiling liar with pretty eyes and a mysterious past? Or could it be something more? Violet's grandmother always warned her about the devil, but she never said he could be a dark-haired boy who takes naps in the sun, who likes coffee, who kisses you in the cemetery, who makes you want to kiss back. Violet's already so knee-deep in love she can't see straight, and that's just how River likes it. Well, it's so good. This also has such a pretty cover. Another one that I loved, I read it earlier this year. This is A Lesson in Vengeance. As soon as I read this, I was like, it's going to make it on my autumnal recommends because it's phenomenal. It does everything right. It's got dark academia aesthetics, it's got witchy aesthetics, it's got returning to school aesthetics. It is, if the Halloween season was distilled into one book, it's this book. It's this book. And it's gay, which was nice. Here's another one I haven't read, but honestly, I think everything this author writes makes me think of autumn, and I'm really hoping to at least something she's written this year. This is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. I chose this one instead of one of the Kingdom of the Wicked, is that what the series is called? Because I feel like it just... Something I think about the pictures in here, because it's got kind of like slightly gruesome pictures. Here we go. Something about these makes me feel more autumnal than demons do. I feel like demons, you know, have been so co-opted to be a part of like most aesthetics. This one though, specifically blood, murder, mystery, cutting people open, feels very autumnal to me. It's like seeing a naked heart is like, it screams October. You know, a book I read earlier this year again and really loved, and one that I've actually seen on the rounds lately, making it into a lot of autumnal reading recommend lists, is Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. I've talked about this book a lot because I really loved it. It's basically about a magical fox hunt, and there's great tension between the leads in a romantic way. There's really complicated ideas in here, and the ending is both satisfying and really melancholy. Solid. The aesthetic here is really on point. You have a sort of cozy, sort of spooky little small town. You have a little bit like pioneer aesthetic. You have a little bit steampunk aesthetic, and there's just woods everywhere. And I think the woods are really what pulls it together and makes me think autumn. And the final book on this list, I have not read this yet. I have an arc of it. It's being re-released. It's a highly anticipated book by a lot of readers this year. And I want to say definitely, but I can't guarantee that. I really want to read this one before it is re-released, and that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is gothic. This is a little spooky. It is about the brides of Dracula. It is gay. It is a letter written from one of the brides to, I believe, Dracula after he has died. And it's supposed to have very, very gothic and almost like Jane Eyre vibes, I heard, which was an interesting comparison. I don't know if that's accurate. I've only heard amazing things. This one is supposed to be just fantastic, and I couldn't not include it on this list because even this cover screams fall. So that's it for me. Thank you so much if you watched. If you liked this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing. I really, really appreciate it. And if you are already a subscriber and you are here with me, thank you so much. I appreciate you to the ends of the earth. If you are somewhere cold, I hope you're staying warm. If you're somewhere warm, I hope you're staying comfortable. And most of all, I hope you're reading a great book. I will see you guys next time. Bye.